3 weeks before Father's Day, my son called me from Portland to tell me he was worried about me living alone. I remember standing at the kitchen counter when he said it, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. I was 69 years old. I had shoveled my own driveway that winter, fixed a leak under the bathroom sink in February, and driven myself to every single doctor's appointment for the past 4 years without once asking for help. My wife, Carol, had passed in 2021, and I had learned slowly, painfully, how to live inside the quiet she left behind. "Dad," my son said, "I just want to make sure you're safe." And I believed him. God help me, I believed him. His name is Russell. He's 43, works in commercial real estate, and has always had a talent for sounding reasonable when he wants something. His sister, my daughter Patricia, lives in Flagstaff. She and I talk every Sunday. But Russell and I had grown distant over the years, nothing dramatic, just the slow drift that happens between a father and a son who see the world differently. So when he called, when he said he wanted to be more involved, I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was tight. "I'm fine, Russell," I told him. "Truly, I know, Dad. I'd feel better if I could check in on you somehow. Not in a weird way. Just, peace of mind." I said I understood. I told him I appreciated it. Father's Day arrived on a Sunday. Russell drove down from Portland, which is about 4 hours from where I live outside Salem, Oregon. He showed up with a box wrapped in blue paper and a card that said, "For the man who taught me everything." I set the card on the mantel. I made us lunch. We sat on the back porch the way we used to when he was a teenager, and for a few hours it felt like something had been repaired between us. The gift was a home security camera system. 3 cameras, a central hub, a subscription to cloud storage. Top of the line. The box said it could detect motion, send alerts to your phone, and store up to 30 days of footage. "I'll set it all up before I leave," he said. "You don't have to do anything." I let him. He spent 2 hours running cables, mounting cameras, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, one on the front porch, and downloading the app on my phone. He showed me how to tap the little icon to see the live feeds. It was impressive. I won't pretend otherwise. "Now I can check in on you anytime," he said. "And if something ever happens, we'll have it on record." I shook his hand at the door when he left. He hugged me instead, which surprised me. I stood on the porch and watched his car until it turned at the end of the block. That night I sat in my recliner and looked at the small black lens of the living room camera, mounted near the bookshelf, its little red light blinking softly in the dark. And I thought, my son loves me. It took my granddaughter 11 days to tell me I was wrong. Her name is Megan. She's 26, Patricia's youngest, and she works in IT security for a firm in Phoenix. She visits when she can, which isn't often enough. She's the kind of person who can walk into a room and immediately see what everyone else missed. She got that from her grandmother, I think. Carol always said Megan had her eyes. Megan came up to Salem on a Tuesday because she had a conference in Portland and decided to stop and see me on the way. She pulled into my driveway around noon. I had soup on the stove. She dropped her bag by the door, gave me a long hug, and then stood in the middle of my living room with her hands in her pockets and went very still. She was looking at the camera. "Grandpa," she said slowly. "When did you get that?" "Father's Day," I said. "Your Uncle Russell set it up. It's a security system." She didn't say anything. She walked over to it, stood on her toes, and looked at it from about 6 inches away. Then she looked at the one in the kitchen doorway. Then she took out her phone and typed something. Then she looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. "Can I borrow your laptop?" she asked. We sat at the kitchen table. She connected to the camera's hub through my network, and for 20 minutes, she typed things I didn't understand while I ate my soup and pretended I wasn't worried. Finally, she leaned back in her chair and pressed her fingers against her mouth. "Grandpa," she said, "these cameras aren't just sending footage to your app." I put down my spoon. "What do you mean?" "They're also transmitting to an external account. A second login. Whoever set these up created an administrator account that you don't have access to. They can see everything your cameras see, but you can't see them watching." I sat with that for a moment. "That could be normal," I said. "Some systems have a setup account, don't they?" "Not like this." she said. She turned the laptop toward me. This account has been accessing your feeds every day, multiple times a day. Look at the access log. The timestamps went back to the day after Russell installed the system. Every morning, every evening, sometimes 3 in the afternoon, sometimes midnight. Someone is watching you, Megan said quietly, consistently. And they went to some trouble to make sure you couldn't see that they were doing it. I looked at the red light blinking on the camera above my bookshelf. I thought about every moment of the past 11 days, making breakfast, watching the news, sitting in this kitchen, forgetting where I put my reading glasses, talking to myself the way you do when you live alone. Every ordinary private moment of an old man's life, recorded and watched by someone who had smiled at me on Father's Day and hugged me at the door. It's Russell, I said. It wasn't a question. Megan nodded. The account is registered to an email address I don't recognize, but the device that created the account, she tapped the screen, registered its first login from Portland. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, my neighbor was watering his roses. A perfectly ordinary Tuesday in Salem, Oregon. Why? I said. Why would he do this? Megan was quiet for a moment. Grandpa, has Russell said anything lately about your finances, your house, your will? And then, like cold water moving through me, I started to remember things. A comment last Christmas about whether I still had a financial advisor. A question in March about whether I'd updated my beneficiaries after Mom passed. A phone call 2 months ago where he'd mentioned, just casually, that he knew a great estate attorney. I had thought nothing of any of it at the time. Taken together, they formed a shape I did not like. He asked me once, I said slowly, whether I'd ever considered a power of attorney in case something happened to me. Megan closed the laptop. I need to make some calls, she said. Don't touch the cameras. Don't change anything. Act like you don't know. I want to tell you that I was angry in that moment. And there was anger somewhere underneath everything. But what I felt, more than anger, was a particular kind of grief that I don't have a good word for. The grief of realizing that something you thought was love was actually a calculation, that the hug at the door meant nothing, that your own child looked at you and saw, not a father, but an asset. Over the next 4 days, Megan worked quietly and carefully. She stayed at my house, sleeping in the guest room, and during the day she made calls to colleagues in Phoenix and did research on her laptop at the same kitchen table while I went about my life as normally as I could manage. I made coffee. I read. I sat in front of the camera in my living room and watched television. And I knew that somewhere Russell was watching me watch television. And I said nothing and changed nothing. On the 3rd day, Megan came to me with a yellow legal pad covered in notes. Russell, she had learned, had contacted an elder law attorney in Portland 6 weeks before Father's Day. He had not told me this. The attorney specialized in guardianship proceedings, the legal process by which a family member can petition a court to declare an elderly relative incapable of managing their own affairs. If granted, guardianship would give Russell legal control over my finances, my property, and my medical decisions. To petition for guardianship, you need evidence. You need to show a judge that the person in question cannot care for themselves. Medical records help, and so does video footage of someone confused, disoriented, making poor decisions, forgetting things. He was building a case file, Megan said. The cameras weren't for your safety, Grandpa. They were for his evidence. I thought about all the times I'd misplaced my glasses in the past 11 days, the time I'd left a burner on for 20 minutes, the afternoon I'd stood in the hallway for a full minute trying to remember why I'd walked in there, which happens to everyone but which, on camera, with the right narration, looks like something else entirely. Has he filed anything? I asked. Not yet. I think he was still collecting footage, building up enough to make a convincing presentation. What do we do? Megan looked at me steadily. We let him think he has what he needs, and then we make sure that what he actually has is enough to bury himself. Here is what we did. Megan's colleague in Phoenix, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who consults for law firms on digital forensics, agreed to document everything about the camera system remotely. She captured the access logs, the dual account structure, the IP addresses of every device that had logged in to view my feeds. She created a verified, time-stamped forensic record of the surveillance operation. Every login, every viewing session, every moment Russell had watched me without my knowledge. Meanwhile, I called Patricia. That was the hardest call I have ever made. Patricia and Russell were close, I should say, and telling her what her brother had done felt like setting fire to something I could not rebuild. She cried. She was furious. She asked me 3 times if I was sure, and each time I said yes, and each time the silence on the line got heavier. "What do you need me to do?" she finally asked. "Nothing yet," I said. "Just know." We also, on Megan's advice, contacted an elder law attorney of our own, a woman in Salem named Janet Freer, who had 30 years of experience and who, when I laid everything out for her across her desk, leaned forward and said, "Mr. Calloway, I want you to know that what your son has done is not only a violation of your privacy. In the state of Oregon, installing surveillance equipment in someone's home without their consent, with intent to use that footage in legal proceedings, creates significant legal exposure." She said it calmly, the way people say things when they've been doing their job a long time and are no longer surprised by what people do to each other. "So what do we do?" I asked. "We wait for him to move first," she said. "And then we're ready." We didn't have to wait long. 19 days after Father's Day, Russell called to tell me he was coming to Salem. He had something he wanted to discuss, he said. Something important. His voice was careful in a way I now recognize the careful voice of someone who has rehearsed what they're going to say. "Of course," I told him. "Come for lunch." He arrived on a Saturday. He was dressed well, which I noted. He sat across from me at the kitchen table with a leather portfolio in front of him, and he started talking about how worried he'd been, about how much I'd been struggling, about how he'd noticed things that concerned him. His face was arranged into something that resembled care. "I've been thinking," he said, "that it might make sense to formalize some things, just as a precaution, so that if something were to happen—" "What kinds of things?" I asked. He opened the portfolio. There were documents, forms from an attorney's office, a petition for limited guardianship over financial matters, his name as petitioner, my name. "Dad, I want to be able to help you, to protect you. I just need you to sign." "I'm not going to sign those," I said. He looked up at me. "I've been watching you," he said, and his voice shifted slightly less careful now, more something else. "The footage from the cameras. Dad, I've been concerned about what I've seen." And there it was. The thing he'd been building toward for 11 days. He had the footage, and he was ready to use it. "I know about the cameras, Russell," I said. The color changed in his face. Not fast, but steadily, the way the sky changes before a storm. "I know about the second account," I said. "I know you've been logging in every day. I have a forensic record of every session. I have timestamps, IP addresses, and the device ID of your laptop. I have a letter from an attorney, and I have an appointment at the Marion County Courthouse on Wednesday morning." He sat very still. "You came here today to present a judge with footage of your father being confused and old," I said. "What you don't know is that I spent the last 2 weeks speaking clearly and coherently to my attorney, my doctor, and my financial advisor, all of whom have provided written statements attesting to my full mental and physical capacity. What you also don't know is that the footage you collected, every second of it, is now part of a filing that describes exactly what it actually is. Unauthorized surveillance of an elderly person, conducted without consent, for the purpose of manufacturing evidence in a legal proceeding." Russell opened his mouth. "Don't," I said. He closed it. "I want you to pick up that portfolio," I said. "And I want you to go home." He sat there for another moment. His face went through several things I won't describe. Then he picked up the portfolio, pushed back his chair, and walked to the front door. He stopped with his hand on the knob. "Dad, go home, Russell." He left. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after his car disappeared. I looked at the camera above the bookshelf. Its red light blinked steadily in the afternoon light. The Wednesday hearing at the Marion County Courthouse was not the dramatic confrontation I had half imagined. It was quiet and procedural, the way these things actually are. Janet Freer presented the forensic report from Dr. Chen. She presented my doctor's statement, my bank statement confirming no unusual transactions or communications of concern, and signed letters from my pastor, my neighbor, and my former supervisor at the engineering firm where I'd worked for 22 years before retiring. She presented the full account of what the cameras had been used for. The judge, a woman named the Honorable Christine Alvarez, reviewed everything over about 45 minutes. She asked me 3 questions directly. I answered them clearly. Then she looked at Russell's attorney across the room and said that the petition for guardianship had no evidentiary basis and was formally denied. She also noted, for the record, that the circumstances of the surveillance installation warranted referral to the district attorney's office for review under Oregon's wiretapping and privacy statutes. I didn't look at Russell when she said that. I kept my eyes on the bench. Outside the courthouse, in the gray June light, Megan was waiting on the steps. She had driven up from Phoenix for the hearing. Patricia was there too, standing beside her. She had flown in from Flagstaff and had not spoken to her brother in 3 weeks. Megan put her arm through mine as we walked down the steps. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it honestly. "Old," I said, "but clear." She laughed a little. Patricia took my other arm. We went to lunch at a diner on Commercial Street that Carol and I used to go to on Sunday mornings. I ordered the same thing I always order. The coffee was hot. Outside the window, Salem went about its Saturday business people walking dogs, a kid on a bicycle, an old man and his granddaughter and his daughter sitting in a window booth. Nothing remarkable about any of it from the outside. The district attorney's office did open an investigation. I am not going to tell you how that ends, because as of right now, I don't know. What I do know is that the cameras came down the afternoon of the hearing. Megan disconnected them carefully, wearing gloves, and everything went into a box that Janet Freer's office is holding. My living room looks different without the black lens above the bookshelf. Bigger, somehow. More like mine. I still talk to Patricia every Sunday. I still make my own coffee and fix my own things when they break and drive myself to my own appointments. I am 69 years old, and I know where my reading glasses are. I want to say something to you, if you'll let me. I know there are people watching this who are my age, or whose parents are my age, and who have someone in their life who makes them feel just occasionally like they're a problem to be managed rather than a person to be loved. I want you to know that your instincts are worth trusting. If something feels off, if a gift arrives with strings attached you can't quite see, if someone who was distant suddenly becomes very interested in your affairs, trust that feeling. Ask questions. Find someone you trust absolutely and talk to them. The law is on your side, in ways you may not know. There are people who can help. You do not have to sign anything you don't understand. You do not have to let anyone into your home, your finances, or your life just because they're family. And if your granddaughter shows up on a Tuesday and stands very still in the middle of your living room looking at something on the wall, let her look. I still have the Father's Day card Russell gave me. It's still on the mantle, for the man who taught me everything. I haven't taken it down. I'm not sure why. Maybe because even after everything, some part of me is still the man who stood on the porch and watched his son's car until it turned at the end of the block, thinking that something between them had been repaired. Maybe that part of me just needs a little more time. Or maybe I leave it there because it reminds me that I was right to want it to be true, even if it wasn't. Wanting your children to love you isn't foolish. Being deceived by someone you love isn't weakness. I was not stupid. I was a father. Those are different things. The soup is still good. The coffee is still hot. Outside my window, my neighbor's roses came in beautiful this year. I am fine. I am home. And for the first time since Father's Day, the red light isn't blinking anymore.